Hyun stared out the window of his small dorm room at the strange purple sky of Valor Prime. 3 moons hung in the afternoon light, each one a different size. He had been at the Galactic Academic Institute for 2 weeks now, and he still felt like he was living in a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. He was not sure which. The campus stretched out below him, filled with students from dozens of different worlds. Some walked on 2 legs like him. Others floated, crawled, or moved in ways he could not even describe. They all had one thing in common, though. They all avoided him. Hyun was one of only 3 humans at the Institute. The other 2 were in different programs and lived in another building. He had met them once at orientation, but they were busy with their own studies. Most days, Hyun felt completely alone. His roommate was a Centaurian named Tarek. Tarek had green scales that shimmered under the lights and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. When Tarek first saw Hyun, his scales had gone dark, almost black. Hyun learned later that this meant fear. Tarek spent most of his time in the library or at his girlfriend's place. He rarely slept in their shared room. The other students were not much better. In the cafeteria, seats would empty when Hyun sat down. In class, no one wanted to be his lab partner until the professor assigned them. The whispers followed him everywhere. Deathworlder, apex species, dangerous. It hurt more than Hyun expected. He had come to Valor Prime because he loved learning about other species. Back on Earth, he had spent his childhood rescuing stray dogs and cats in Seoul. He volunteered at animal shelters. He wanted to understand how different creatures thought and felt. When Earth joined the galactic community 5 years ago, Hyun applied to every xenobiology program he could find. The Institute accepted him with a full scholarship. Now he wondered if it had been a mistake. His tablet buzzed. A message from Yuna appeared on the screen. She was his friend from the Earth campus, studying through holographic classes while he was here in person. Her face popped up in a small video window. "Hey, how are the aliens treating you?" she asked with a smile. Hyun tried to smile back. "Same as yesterday. They think I'm going to eat them or something." Yuna laughed, but her eyes showed sympathy. "Give them time. Earth has a reputation. We come from a Class 12 death world. That scares people who evolved on nice, safe planets." "I just want to study and make friends," Hyun said quietly. "I am not scary." "I know," Yuna said. "But to them you are. Anyway, I have to tell you something. Professor Vekrin announced your big practical exam today, right?" Hyun nodded. "Yes, he said it is the most important test of the semester. We are going to work with some kind of predator species." He did not give many details yet. Yuna's face became serious. "I looked it up in the Earth database. Raxian cubs. Hyun, these things are dangerous. They are apex predators from a high-gravity world. They hunt in packs. They can smell fear like a shark smells blood. Even as babies, they have killed adult prey animals." Hyun felt his stomach tighten. "What am I supposed to do?" "I do not know," Yuna admitted. "But be careful. The other students will have advantages. Some of them are predators too. Others have natural defenses. You are just a human." After the call ended, Hyun sat in silence. Just a human. The words echoed in his mind. On Earth, humans were at the top. They had conquered their planet, built cities, traveled to the stars. But out here in the wider galaxy, humans were newcomers. Unknown. Feared but not respected. The next morning, Hyun attended Professor Vekrin's lecture. The professor was tall and thin, with a body like a praying mantis and large crystalline eyes that reflected light in rainbow patterns. His voice clicked and hummed, translated by the device in Hyun's ear. "Students," Professor Vekrin began, "next week you will face your practical examination. You will enter the amphitheater hall where 6 Raxian cubs will be released. These cubs are 8 weeks old. In the wild, they are learning to hunt at this age. Their instincts are pure and strong. The classroom filled with nervous sounds. Clicks, hums, chirps, and a few gasps. Your task is simple," the professor continued. "Remain in the hall for 10 minutes while the cubs assess you. They will determine if you are prey, predator, or something else. Those who panic will fail. Those who are injured will be removed by our medical team. Those who show understanding of predator behavior will pass." A student in the front row raised a tentacle. "Professor, what if the cubs attack?" "Then your safety barrier will activate and remove you from the exercise. You will fail the course." Professor Vekrin's eyes swept across the room. "I suggest you prepare carefully. Study predator behavior. Understand what triggers hunting instincts. 23% of students are injured in this exercise every year. Some injuries are severe. After class, Hyun walked back to his dorm in a daze. Other students rushed past him, talking frantically about preparation strategies. He heard mentions of sedatives, protective equipment, pheromone blockers. Tarek caught up with him near the entrance to their building. "Human," Tarek said. It was the first time he had spoken directly to Hyun in days. "You should drop this class. Raxian cubs are no joke. They will see you as prey. Small mammal, soft skin. You have no scales, no claws, nothing." "I cannot drop the class," Hyun replied. "It is required for my degree." Tarek's scales flickered between green and dark gray. "Then get protective gear, lots of it, and maybe write a message to your family. Just in case." That night, Hyun could not sleep. He lay in his bed and researched everything he could find about Raxian cubs. The images showed creatures that looked like a mix between wolves and bears. They had 6 legs, long bodies covered in thick silver-black fur, and claws that gleamed like metal. Their eyes glowed in the dark. Videos showed them taking down prey 3 times their size. But Hyun also noticed something else. In every video, every image, the cubs were tense, alert, ready to fight or run. They never looked relaxed, never looked safe. He thought about the dogs he had rescued back in Seoul. Even the aggressive ones, the ones that had been abused and abandoned, could learn to trust. It took patience, calmness, understanding. Maybe, Hyun thought, these cubs were not so different. Maybe they were just scared too. He opened a new search and started researching Earth predators instead. Wolves, bears, big cats. He read about pack behavior, about how young animals learn. He watched videos of wildlife rehabilitators working with dangerous animals. By the time the sun rose over Velar Prime, Hyun had a plan. It was probably a stupid plan. It might get him hurt or killed, but it was the only plan that felt right. He was not going to treat the cubs like enemies. He was going to treat them like what they were. Babies in a strange place surrounded by strange beings trying to figure out who was safe. And maybe, just maybe, they would figure out that he was. The week before the practical exam felt like the longest week of Hyun's life. Every day brought new safety briefings, new warnings, new horror stories about previous years. Professor Vekrin showed them medical reports from past examinations. Broken bones, deep claw marks. One student had been in the hospital for 3 months after a cub bit through their protective suit. The lecture hall filled with anxiety that Hyun could almost taste. Students who normally ignored each other now gathered in tight groups, sharing preparation strategies. The predator species students acted confident, showing off their natural weapons. Tarek walked around with his scales puffed up, practicing intimidation displays with his friends. They hissed and snapped at each other, trying to look as dangerous as possible. The prey species students looked terrified. A small Zenti student, who looked like a bluebird with 4 wings, asked the professor for an exemption. Her species had evolved to flee from predators. Every instinct in her body screamed to run. Professor Vekrin denied the request. "If you wish to study xenobiology, you must understand all species," he said firmly. "Prey, predator, and everything between. Running from knowledge helps no one." Hyun watched all of this from the back of the classroom. He did not join any groups. No one invited him anyway. Instead, he spent his time in the library, reading everything he could find about animal behavior. Not just Raxian behavior, all predators. The library was massive, with floors that spiraled up toward a glass ceiling. Books and data tablets from 1,000 worlds lined the shelves. Hyun found a quiet corner where he could work without being disturbed. He pulled up files on Earth predators, comparing them to what he knew about Raxians. Wolves, he learned, had complex pack structures. They used body language to communicate. Direct eye contact was a challenge. Looking away showed submission. But there was a third option that many people forgot. Soft eyes, relaxed posture. This showed that you were not a threat but also not prey. You were just there, existing in the same space. Bears were different. They were solitary creatures who valued their space. If you encountered a bear, you should not run. Running triggered the chase instinct. You should not stare because that was aggressive. Instead, you made yourself known, moved slowly, and gave the bear room to leave. Big cats were ambush hunters. They attacked from behind, from surprise, but if they knew you saw them, they often lost interest. Prey that was aware was harder to catch. Hyun made notes. He drew diagrams. He started to see patterns. Predators, regardless of their planet of origin, seemed to share certain basic instincts. They responded to fear. They responded to aggression. But what about calm? What about simple, peaceful presence? On the fourth day of preparation, Tarek found Hyun in the library. The Centaurian scales were their normal green color, which meant he was feeling neutral. Maybe even curious. "What are you doing, human?" Tarek asked, looking at Hyun's notes. "Research," Hyun replied simply. "That is not Raxian data," Tarek observed. "Those are Earth animals." "Yes." Tarek sat down across from Hyun, which was the first time he had voluntarily come close. "Why study Earth predators? They are not the same as Raxians." Hyun looked up from his tablet. "Maybe not, but predators think in similar ways. They all hunt. They all protect themselves. They all have young that need to learn and grow. Raxian cubs are not like Earth animals," Tarek said with a hint of frustration. "They are stronger, faster, and more aggressive. You cannot treat them like your soft pets from home." "I am not going to treat them like pets," Hyun said quietly. "I am going to treat them like young predators who are probably scared and confused." Tarek's scales flickered with amusement. "Scared? They are apex predators. They fear nothing." "Everything fears something," Hyun replied. "Especially babies." Tarek stood up and shook his head. "You are going to get hurt, human. I almost feel bad about it." "Almost." He walked away, but his scales showed orange flickers. Hyun had learned that orange meant worry. The other students prepared in their own ways. Some bought expensive protective gear from the campus store, suits made of flexible armor that could stop claws and teeth. Others purchased pheromone sprays designed to confuse predator senses. The wealthier students hired private tutors, experts in predator behavior who taught them dominance techniques. Hyun bought nothing. He had no money for expensive equipment, and besides, he did not think it would help. The cubs would see through tricks. They would smell fear even through pheromone blockers. They would sense aggression even under armor. Instead, Hyun spent his evenings in his dorm room practicing meditation. He had learned it years ago from his grandmother in Seoul. She had taught him to quiet his mind, to breathe deeply, to find calm even in chaos. Back then he thought it was just a way to relax. Now he realized it might save his life. He sat cross-legged on his bed, eyes closed, breathing slowly. In and out. In and out. He imagined the cubs in front of him. He imagined staying calm, not frozen with fear, but genuinely at peace. He pictured them as they were. Young animals. Dangerous, yes, but also vulnerable. Also learning. On the night before the exam, Yuna called again. Her face appeared on his screen and she looked worried. "I talked to Professor Kim here on Earth," she said. "She used to work at the Institute before she came back home. She told me something interesting about humans." "What?" Hyun asked. "She said humans have something that other species do not have. We co-evolved with predators. On most planets, intelligent species evolved by either running away from predators or by becoming predators themselves. But Earth was different. Humans survived by cooperating with predators. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We lived alongside dangerous animals and learned to understand them." Hyun thought about this. "So we are not just prey or predator." "Exactly," Yuna said excitedly. "We are something else. We are partners. Pack members." Professor Kim said that is why humans can bond with almost any animal. "We see them as individuals, not just threats." "That is a nice theory," Hyun said. "But I do not know if Raxian cubs will care about theories." "Maybe they will," Yuna said softly. "Maybe they will sense what you are, what humans are. Just promise me you will be careful." "I promise," Hyun said. After the call ended, Hyun lay in his bed but could not sleep. His mind raced with possibilities. What if he was wrong? What if the cubs did attack? What if his calm meant nothing to creatures from another world? But then he thought about the rescue dogs back home. The ones who had been beaten and starved. The ones who growled and snapped at everyone. He remembered how they had eventually come to trust him. Not because he dominated them. Not because he bribed them with food. But because he sat quietly nearby and let them come to him in their own time. He remembered a dog named Bori, a Jindo mix who had been used in dogfights. Bori had scars all over his body and trusted no one. For weeks, Hyun just sat outside Bori's kennel, reading books, talking softly, never forcing interaction. Then one day, Bori walked up to the fence and sniffed Hyun's hand. 2 weeks later, Bori was sleeping with his head in Hyun's lap. Maybe the cubs would be like Bori. Or maybe they would be completely different. Either way, Hyun knew his approach. He would not fight. He would not run. He would simply be present and let them decide. Dawn broke over Valar Prime. The 3 moons set one by one, and the purple sky turned orange with sunrise. Hyun dressed in simple clothes. No armor, no special equipment, just himself. He walked across campus toward the amphitheater hall. Other students streamed in the same direction, but they gave him wide space. Some wore protective suits. Others moved in tight groups for moral support. Hyun walked alone. The amphitheater hall loomed ahead, a massive dome structure that could hold thousands. Today, it would hold 200 students and 6 predator cubs. Hyun took a deep breath and stepped inside. The inside of the amphitheater hall was more impressive than Hyun had imagined. The floor was vast and circular, covered with soft sand-like material that would cushion falls. Seats rose up in tiers all around, filled with faculty members and advanced students who had come to watch. Bright lights hung from the domed ceiling, making the space feel exposed and open. 200 students filed onto the floor, each moving toward their assigned position. The positions were marked by small glowing circles on the ground, spaced far enough apart that the cubs could move freely between students. Hyun found his spot near the center of the hall. He stood in his circle and looked around. To his left was a Heptarian student, a large creature covered in thick armor plates. To his right was the Zenti student who had asked for an exemption, the small blue bird-like being who trembled visibly. Further away he saw Tarek standing with his scales puffed up, trying to look large and intimidating. Professor Vekran's voice echoed through the hall, amplified by speakers. "Students, your attention, please. In a few moments, 6 Raxian cubs will be released into the arena. These cubs are 8 weeks old. At this age, their hunting instincts are developing rapidly. They are learning to identify prey, assess threats, and establish dominance." Hyun listened carefully, focusing on his breathing. In and out. Slow and steady. "The cubs will move among you freely," Professor Vekran continued. "Some of you will be ignored. Some of you will be challenged. Some of you may be attacked. Your safety barriers will activate if you are in mortal danger. But minor injuries are part of the learning process. Remember, these are wild predators. They respond to your energy, your fear, your intentions." A nervous murmur rippled through the students. Hyun heard clicking sounds, chittering, and what might have been prayers in alien languages. "You have 10 minutes, the professor said. Those who flee, attack, or panic will fail automatically. Those who show understanding and remain calm will pass. The exercise begins now." 6 gates around the perimeter of the hall opened simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Silence filled the space. Then from the darkness beyond the gates, 6 shapes emerged. The Raxian cubs were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They moved on 6 legs with fluid grace, their silver-black fur catching the light. Glowing stripes ran along their bodies, pulsing with colors that shifted from blue to purple to red. Their eyes were large and reflective, taking in everything. Each cub was about the size of a large wolf from Earth, but their bodies were longer, more flexible. They entered the arena cautiously, staying low to the ground. Their glowing stripes pulsed quickly, bright red. Hyun remembered from his research that rapid red pulses meant alertness, possibly aggression. The cubs were on edge. The cubs spread out, each one choosing a different direction. They began to circle the students, sniffing, observing. One cub approached the Heptarian student to Hyun's left. The Heptarian, following instinct, made a loud clicking sound and displayed his armor plates. The cub's stripes flashed bright red. It growled low and rushed forward. The Heptarian safety barrier activated with a flash of light, creating a dome around him. The cub bounced off the barrier and moved away, looking for easier targets. The Heptarian was removed from the exercise by assistants who appeared from the side. First failure. The Zenti student to Hyun's right could not help herself. When a cub wandered close, her flight instinct took over. She spread her wings and tried to fly upward. 3 cubs immediately gave chase, their hunting instincts triggered by running prey. Instructors intervened quickly, using energy nets to stop the cubs before they reached her. The Zenti was escorted out, crying. Second failure. All around the hall, chaos erupted. Students tried different strategies with mixed results. Some stood perfectly still, frozen in fear. The cubs investigated them, sniffing and circling, but eventually lost interest. Frozen did not mean prey or threat. It meant nothing interesting. Others tried to display dominance like Tarek. He hissed loudly, extended his claws, and made himself as large as possible. A cub approached him, curious. They had a staring contest, predator to predator. After a long moment, the cub huffed and walked away. Tarek's scales flickered with relief. He had passed, but barely. A few students tried to run. Each time cubs gave chase. Barriers activated. More failures. Hyun remained in his spot, watching all of this with calm attention. 2 cubs were moving in his direction now, approaching from different angles. They moved like they were hunting, low and careful. His heart beat faster, but he consciously slowed his breathing. When the cubs were about 10 feet away, Hyun made his decision. Slowly, carefully, he lowered himself to sit cross-legged on the ground. He placed his hands gently on his knees, palms up. He kept his eyes soft, not staring directly at the cubs, but watching them with peripheral vision. His posture was open, relaxed, non-threatening. The cubs stopped. Their heads tilted slightly, confused. This behavior did not match their instinctual categories. Prey ran or froze. Predators displayed aggression or dominance. But this creature just sat down and looked peaceful. One cub, slightly larger than the other, approached first. It moved cautiously, its glowing stripes still red but pulsing slower now. It came close enough that Hyun could smell its scent like earth and something wild. The cub sniffed Hyun's hand, his arm, his face. Hyun did not move. He breathed naturally. He thought calm thoughts. He remembered Bori, the rescue dog. He remembered sitting peacefully while scared animals learned to trust. The cub's stripes began to change color. Red faded to orange, then yellow, then blue. Blue meant calm. Blue meant safe. The cub made a soft sound, almost like a question. Then it circled once and lay down, resting its head on Hyun's thigh. The weight was substantial, warm and solid. Hyun felt the cub's breathing slow down. The glowing stripes pulsed in a gentle, steady rhythm. The second cub saw this and chirped. Not a growl or a bark, but a curious, almost playful sound. It approached Hyun from the other side and sniffed him thoroughly. Then it too lay down, pressing against Hyun's back. Around the hall, the remaining students and faculty watched in stunned silence. 4 other cubs who had been investigating other students turned their heads. They saw their siblings relaxed and calm around the strange 2-legged creature. Curiosity drew them over. One by one, the 4 remaining cubs abandoned the other students and moved toward Hyun. They approached cautiously at first, but when they saw that the first 2 were safe and peaceful, they hurried closer. Soon all 6 cubs surrounded Hyun. One draped itself across his shoulders like a heavy furry scarf. 2 more claimed his lap. The others pressed against his sides and back. Their combined weight was enormous, but Hyun did not complain. He sat very still, feeling their warmth, their breathing, the gentle pulse of their bioluminescent stripes. The stripes of all 6 cubs synchronized, glowing in a slow, steady rhythm. Blue turning to soft purple, the colors of deep contentment and safety. One cub began to purr, a sound that resonated through its body and into Hyun's. The others joined in, creating a chorus of rumbling purrs that filled the hall. Professor Vekrin stood at the edge of the arena, his crystalline eyes wide with disbelief. His translator device crackled as he spoke. In 300 cycles of conducting this exercise across thousands of students, I have never seen this. Never. The other faculty members murmured among themselves. Students who had passed their own tests by being ignored or by showing dominance stared at Hyun with expressions ranging from shock to envy to fear. Minutes passed. The cubs showed no interest in leaving Hyun's side. They shifted positions occasionally, getting more comfortable, but none of them wandered away. When instructors tried to approach to check on Hyun, the cubs growled softly in warning. Not aggressive, but protective. They had claimed this human as theirs. One of the cubs yawned, showing rows of crystal-sharp teeth, then nuzzled its head under Hyun's arm. Another one kneaded its paws against Hyun's leg, just like a cat making biscuits. These fearsome predators, these creatures that had terrified 200 students, were acting like affectionate puppies. Hyun allowed himself a small smile. He had been right. They were just babies, scared babies in a strange place, surrounded by beings who saw them as threats or challenges. He had not seen them that way. He had seen them as what they were, and somehow they knew. The 10 minutes ended. Professor Vekrin announced that the exercise was complete. Assistants moved to collect the cubs and return them to their holding area. But when they approached, the cubs refused to move. They pressed closer to Hyun and growled at the handlers. Finally, Hyun spoke softly. "It is okay. They need to take you back now." He gently scratched behind one cub's ear, then carefully stood up. The cubs stood too, following his movement. When he walked toward the exit, all 6 cubs followed him like ducklings following their mother. The entire hall watched in silence as a human student walked across the arena floor, followed by 6 apex predators who had apparently decided he was family. The handlers managed to guide the cubs back to their holding area, but only because Hyun walked with them. Even then, the cubs kept looking back at him, making soft whining sounds. When the doors finally closed between them, Hyun heard the cubs crying on the other side. The sound made his chest ache. Professor Vekran approached Hyun immediately, his crystalline eyes reflecting patterns of confusion and excitement. "Student Hyun, you will come with me. We need to run tests immediately." For the next 3 hours, Hyun sat in the medical wing while doctors from 6 different species examined him. They took blood samples. They scanned his body with strange devices. They measured his pheromones, his brainwaves, his electromagnetic field. They asked him hundreds of questions about what he was thinking, feeling, and doing during the exercise. The results were frustratingly simple. Hyun was completely ordinarily human. There was nothing unusual about his chemistry, his biology, or his energy signature. He had not done anything special. He had just sat down and been calm. "This makes no sense," muttered a Valerian doctor, reviewing the data for the 3rd time. "Raxian cubs should have seen you as prey. Small mammal, soft skin, no natural defenses. Their instincts should have triggered a hunting response. But they did not," Hyun said quietly. "No," the doctor agreed. "They did not. Instead, they treated you like a trusted pack member. Like family. This is not normal Raxian behavior, even with their own species." News of what happened spread through the campus network before Hyun even left the medical wing. By the time he walked back to his dorm, students were staring at him openly. Some moved out of his way quickly, fear in their eyes. Others watched with something that looked like awe. His tablet buzzed constantly with messages. Other students wanted to know his secret. Faculty members requested interviews. News outlets from 3 different planets wanted statements. Hyun ignored most of them and called Yuna. Her face appeared on the screen, eyes wide. "I saw the video. Everyone on Earth is talking about it." "How did you do that?" "I did not do anything special," Hyun said, exhausted. "I just sat down. I stayed calm. That is all." "That is not all," Yuna said excitedly. "I have been researching all day." "Hyun, there are reports coming from all over the galaxy. Wherever humans interact with alien predators, strange things happen. A human vet on Colress 4 calmed a stampede of thunderhorns. Those things are like rhinos mixed with angry elephants. Human peacekeepers in the war zones report that hostile wildlife protects them instead of attacking. There was even a story about a human child who wandered into a void stalker den and the predators adopted her. Hyun sat down on his bed, processing this information. "So it is not just me?" "It is not just you," Yuna confirmed. "It is all of us, humans. We have something that other species do not have. The galaxy is starting to notice." A knock on his door interrupted their conversation. Hyun opened it to find Tarek standing there. The Centaurian's scales were a soft green color with streaks of orange. "Nervousness and respect. Can I come in?" Tarek asked quietly. Hyun nodded and let him enter. Yuna waved from the screen and ended the call to give them privacy. Tarek stood awkwardly in the small room, not meeting Hyun's eyes. "I came to apologize. I have been rude to you since you arrived. I treated you like a threat when you were just a student like me." "It is okay," Hyun said. "It is not okay," Tarek insisted. "I was scared. Earth is a death world. Humans are apex predators. Everyone says you are dangerous. But today I saw something different. Those cubs could have hurt anyone in that hall. They are trained from birth to hunt, but they looked at you and saw safety. They saw family." Tarek's scales rippled with emotion. "How did you do it?" Hyun sat down and thought about how to explain. "On Earth, humans survived not by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by understanding other species. We lived with wolves and they became dogs. We lived with cats and they chose to stay with us. We learned that predators are not just killers. They are mothers and fathers. They play. They feel fear and comfort. They are individuals. Other species do not think this way," Tarek asked. "I do not think so," Hyun said. "Most species evolved by either running from predators or by being predators. Earth was different. Earth had so many different predators that humans had to learn to live with them. We became partners with them. We saw them as neighbors, not enemies. Tarek absorbed this slowly. I come from a predator species. My ancestors hunted alone. We learned to fight for territory. When I saw the cubs, I saw competitors. Things to dominate or avoid, but you saw babies. They are babies, Hyun said simply. Over the next few days, Hyun became a celebrity on campus. Students who had avoided him now wanted to talk to him. Faculty members invited him to give presentations. The university administration held an emergency meeting to discuss the implications of what had happened. Professor Vekrin called Hyun to his office on the third day after the exercise. The office was filled with artifacts from dozens of worlds, specimens in preservation jars and walls covered in research notes. Sit, please, the professor said, gesturing to a chair. I need to share something with you. Something troubling. Hyun sat down, suddenly nervous. I have been studying Raxian behavior for 40 years, Professor Vekrin began. I have raised cubs from birth. I have observed them in the wild. Never, not once have I seen them behave the way they did with you. Even with their own parents, Raxian cubs are alert and defensive. They never fully relax. They never sleep that deeply. They never synchronize their bioluminescence in that pattern of complete trust. What does that mean? Hyun asked. It means you triggered something in them that even their own species cannot trigger. You made them feel absolutely safe. Safer than they have ever felt before. Professor Vekrin leaned forward. Hyun, the Galactic Council has requested your presence. Reports are coming from 14 different worlds about humans interacting with predator species in unprecedented ways. The Council wants to understand what this means. I do not understand it myself, Hyun admitted. Perhaps not, the professor said. But the galaxy needs to understand. There are species that have been at war for centuries because they cannot coexist with predators. There are prey species that live in constant fear. There are predator species that are hunted to extinction because they are considered too dangerous. If humans can bridge that gap, if you can create understanding where there was only fear, this changes everything. A message came through on Hyun's tablet. It was from Yuna, marked urgent. He opened it and read quickly. His eyes widened. What is it? Professor Vekrin asked. The Galactic Council wants to hold a hearing, Hyun said slowly, about humans. About whether we are a threat or an asset to galactic stability. They want me to testify. Professor Vekrin's eyes shimmered. This is larger than a school exercise now. What happened in that hall, what you did, it represents something the galaxy has never seen before. You showed that the divide between predator and prey is not absolute. You showed that understanding and empathy can exist where we thought only instinct ruled. Hyun looked down at his hands. They were just ordinary hands. He was just an ordinary human who liked animals and wanted to understand them. How had he ended up at the center of a galactic debate? Will you go? Professor Vekrin asked. Will you speak to the council? Hyun thought about the cubs. He thought about how they had curled up around him, purring, completely at peace. He thought about all the students who had been so scared of him, and how he had been scared of them too. Fear on both sides. Misunderstanding on both sides, maybe that was the point. Maybe the galaxy was full of fear and misunderstanding, and maybe, just maybe, humans could help change that. Yes, Hyun said. I will go. The next day arrangements were made. Hyun would travel to Station Chorus, the neutral diplomatic hub where the Galactic Council met. He would be accompanied by Professor Vekrin and a human diplomat named Mira. The hearing was scheduled for 1 week away, but before he left, Hyun asked for one thing. He wanted to see the cubs again. Permission was granted. Station Chorus was unlike anything Hyun had ever seen. The massive structure orbited a trinary star system, 3 suns of different colors creating a dance of light across the station's surface. Inside, the architecture blended styles from hundreds of worlds. Curved Valerian spires met angular Centaurian blocks. Flowing Aquarian chambers connected to crystalline Litharian gardens. Hyun arrived with Professor Vekrin and Mira, the human diplomat. Mira was older than Hyun, maybe 40 years old, with kind eyes and a confident manner. She had been working in galactic diplomacy since Earth joined the galactic community. Nervous? She asked Hyun as they walked through the station corridors. Terrified, Hyun admitted. Mira smiled. Good, that means you will be careful with your words. But do not let fear control you. Just be honest. Tell them what you feel. The council chamber was enormous. Seats rose in circular tiers arranged so that every delegate could see every other delegate. 47 species were represented. From tiny insect-like beings to massive creatures that barely fit in their specially designed seats. The chamber hummed with translation devices, creating a low background noise. Hyun sat in the center of the chamber, in a seat designed for human proportions. Lights focused on him from all directions. Hundreds of eyes in dozens of shapes and colors watched him. A being that looked like living crystal stood to speak. The translator identified it as Representative Kelvin of the Litharian Collective. We are here to address the question of human integration into galactic society. Recent incidents suggest that humans possess an unusual ability to interact with predator species. This raises concerns and possibilities. Are humans a threat? Could they manipulate military beasts? Or are they an asset? Could they bridge the divide between predator and prey civilizations? Another representative stood. This one was reptilian, with red scales and sharp teeth. A predator species. I speak for the Draconian League. We are concerned. For millions of years, our species has maintained control through strength. Our military forces include trained predator beasts. If humans can simply walk up to these creatures and make them docile, our security is compromised. A small, furry representative from a prey species stood next. I speak for the Catonian Alliance. We are hopeful. For generations, my people have lived in fear of predator species raids. If humans can create understanding between predator and prey, perhaps peace is possible where we thought none could exist. The debate went on for hours. Hyun listened as representatives argued about threats, opportunities, regulations, and possibilities. Some spoke with fear, others with hope. All of them spoke about humans like they were a force of nature, something powerful and unpredictable. Finally, the council turned to Hyun. Representative Kelvin's crystalline form chimed like bells. Human student Hyun, you are at the center of this phenomenon. What happened in that lecture hall? How did you make 6 aggressive predator cubs treat you as family? Hyun stood slowly. His legs felt weak, but he kept his voice steady. I did not make them do anything. I just sat down and stayed calm. But why did that work? Another representative asked. We have records of thousands of species attempting similar approaches. None succeeded. Hyun thought carefully about his answer. He remembered the cubs, their warm weight, their gentle purring. He remembered every rescue dog he had ever helped. He remembered his grandmother teaching him to meditate, to find peace in chaos. On Earth, Hyun began, humans evolved differently than most species. Earth is what you call a Class 12 death world. It has more predator species than almost any planet in the known galaxy. To survive, humans could not just be prey. We could not just be predators either. We had to be something else. The chamber was silent now, everyone listening. We learned to understand predators. Hyun continued, not as enemies, not as tools, as individuals. We lived with wolves and they became our companions. We shared our food with cats and they chose to stay with us. We watched bears and learned when to leave them alone. We survived by seeing predators not as killing machines but as living beings with feelings and needs. Are you saying other species lack empathy? A representative challenged. No, Hyun said quickly. I am saying humans had to develop empathy across species lines to survive. Most species empathize with their own kind. Predators understand predators. Prey understand prey. But humans had to understand both. We had to see the wolf as a potential friend and the deer as a creature deserving of respect. We became bridges because we had to. He took a breath and continued. When I saw those cubs in the lecture hall, I did not see apex predators. I saw babies, scared babies in a strange place with strange beings. Every other student saw them as threats or challenges. But I saw what they really were. Young animals who needed to feel safe. So I gave them safety. I sat down. I stayed calm. I showed them I was not a threat. And they responded. Representative Kelvin chimed thoughtfully. You speak of seeing individual beings. Most species categorize others as predator, prey, or neutral. You suggest humans see beyond categories? Yes, Hyun said. On Earth we have a saying. All predators are someone's puppy. It means that even the most dangerous creature is still an individual with feelings. A wolf is fierce, but it also plays. A bear is strong, but it also feels fear. Even a tiny kitten has the instincts of a predator, but we see it as cute and innocent. Humans learn to hold both truths at once. A prey species representative spoke up nervously. But is this not dangerous? If humans can make predators docile, they could be used as weapons. I cannot make predators do anything, Hyun replied firmly. I can only offer them peace. They choose whether to accept. Those cubs chose to trust me because I gave them a choice. I did not force anything. I think that is important. Humans do not control predators. We understand them. There is a difference. The debate continued, but the tone had shifted. Representatives began to see possibilities instead of just threats. They discussed educational programs, cultural exchanges, research partnerships. Could humans teach other species this way of seeing? Could the ancient divide between predator and prey finally be bridged? After hours of discussion, the council took a vote. The results were announced by Representative Kelvin. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. Humans will be granted a new classification. You are now a facilitative species. This means you are recognized as having unique abilities to create understanding between different species types. Human exchange programs will be expanded. A new field of study will be established. Cooperative xenopsychology, focusing on interspecies empathy and communication. Mira squeezed Hyun's shoulder. Smiling, however, Representative Kelvin continued, restrictions are placed on military applications. Humans cannot be used to manipulate predator beasts for warfare, but humanitarian applications are encouraged. Humans will be invited to worlds where predator and prey species struggle to coexist. Hyun felt relief wash over him. It was not perfect, but it was a start. 3 weeks later, Hyun returned to the Galactic Academic Institute. He expected things to be different, but he was not prepared for how different. Students who had avoided him now greeted him in the hallways. Tarek had become a genuine friend, studying with Hyun most evenings. The Zentai student who had failed the exercise approached him shyly and asked if he would teach her about Earth animals. Professor Vekran offered Hyun a position as teaching assistant, unprecedented for a first-year student. More surprising, the Raxian cubs had been permanently assigned to Hyun's care as part of a new research program. They lived in a special habitat attached to the xenobiology building, but they spent most of their time with Hyun. He visited them every day. They had grown larger now, each one the size of a full-grown earth bear. But they still acted like puppies when they saw him. They bounded over, their bioluminescent stripes glowing bright blue with joy. They knocked him over and licked his face. They curled up around him and purred. Other students came to observe, taking notes on the interaction. Some brave ones asked if they could try approaching the cubs. Hyun taught them what he knew. Calm energy, respect. Seeing the individual, not just the species. Some students succeeded. Others did not. But they were all learning. One evening, Hyun sat in the habitat with all 6 cubs sleeping around him. He called Yuna on his tablet. Her face appeared, grinning. So you are basically the galaxy's universal animal expert now, she said. How does it feel? Hyun looked at the cubs. One of them snored softly, its massive head on his lap. Another one had its paw across his arm, holding him in place. He felt their warmth, their trust, their peace. It feels right, he said quietly. Earth taught us how to live with predators. For millions of years, humans and predators existed together. We learned from each other. We changed each other. Maybe that is what Earth gave us that other worlds did not. Not just survival skills, but the ability to see the world through different eyes. And now you get to teach the whole galaxy, Yuna said softly. Maybe, Hyun said. Or maybe I just get to show them what is possible. That predator and prey are not the only options. That understanding is stronger than fear. That the divide between species is not as wide as everyone thinks. One of the cubs woke up and yawned, showing its crystal-sharp teeth. Then it nuzzled closer to Hyun and went back to sleep. You know what the weird thing is? Hyun said. When I first came here, I felt so alone. I was the scary human from the death world. Everyone avoided me. I thought I had made a mistake coming here. And now? Yuna asked. Hyun scratched behind a cub's ear and it purred in its sleep. Now I understand. Everyone was scared because they did not understand. Just like the cubs were alert and defensive until they learned I was safe. Fear comes from not knowing. But once you know, once you understand, everything changes. That is very wise, Yuna said with a smile. I learned it from dogs, Hyun replied. And from 6 predator cubs who just wanted someone to see them as they really were. Not monsters. Not weapons. Just babies who needed to feel safe. The screen faded and Hyun sat in comfortable silence with his cubs. Outside, the moons of Valar Prime rose into the purple sky. Inside the habitat, A human and 6 apex predators slept together in perfect peace. Across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds, other humans were having their own encounters with alien predators. Each story was different, but the pattern was the same. Humans saw individuals where others saw only categories. They offered understanding where others offered only fear or dominance. The galaxy was changing slowly but surely. Ancient divides were being questioned. New possibilities were opening up. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that Earth had taught its children long ago. All creatures, no matter how dangerous they seem, are just trying to survive. Just trying to find safety. Just trying to belong. And sometimes all it takes is one person willing to sit down, stay calm, and see them as they truly are. Not as threats or tools or enemies, but as living beings deserving of respect and understanding. Hyun smiled as one of the cubs shifted in its sleep, pressing closer. He was no longer the lonely exchange student. He was exactly where he needed to be, and the cubs, once fierce and untrusting, had found what they needed too: a family.